The notion that global warming is a war by the mainstream media against Christianity may seem far-fetched to some, but it is an idea that has been circulating in certain circles. Proponents of this theory argue that the mainstream media's emphasis on climate change and environmentalism is a veiled attempt to undermine Christian values and promote the secular, liberal agenda. To understand this perspective, it's essential to examine the historical context of the environmental movement and its relationship with Christianity. In the 1960s and 1970s, the environmental movement emerged as a response to the devastating consequences of industrialization and technological advancements. This movement was largely driven by secular and liberal individuals who were concerned about the impact of human activities on the natural world. As the movement gained momentum, it began to challenge the dominant Christian worldview, which was seen as being rooted in a biblical narrative that emphasized human domination over nature. The Bible, in Genesis 1:28, states that humans are given dominion over the earth and all its creatures. This verse has been interpreted by some Christians as a justification for exploiting natural resources and disregarding environmental concerns. In contrast, the environmental movement emphasizes the importance of living in harmony with nature and recognizing the intrinsic value of non-human life. This fundamental difference in worldview has led some Christians to view the environmental movement as a threat to their values and beliefs. The mainstream media's coverage of global warming has been accused of perpetuating this perceived war against Christianity. By emphasizing the scientific consensus on climate change and the need for urgent action, the media is seen as promoting a secular, liberal agenda that undermines Christian teachings. Some argue that the media's focus on climate change is a way of distracting from more pressing issues such as abortion, gay rights, and religious freedom, which are deemed more important by some Christians. Furthermore, the language used by climate activists and the media has been criticized for being overly apocalyptic and alarmist. The use of terms like climate crisis and climate emergency is seen as an attempt to create a sense of fear and urgency, which can be perceived as an attack on Christian values of hope and optimism. The emphasis on individual action and personal responsibility for reducing carbon emissions is also seen as a threat to the traditional Christian concept of original sin, which emphasizes human fallenness and the need for redemption through faith. In addition, some Christians argue that the climate movement's emphasis on sustainability and environmental stewardship is a form of eco-theology that rivals traditional Christian theology. This perspective sees the natural world as a sacred, interconnected web of life, rather than a created order with humans at the apex. By promoting this eco-theological worldview, the media is accused of undermining the authority of Scripture and the teachings of the Church. However, it's essential to note that not all Christians share this perspective, and many see the care of creation as an integral part of their faith. The concept of stewardship, which emphasizes the responsibility to care for and protect the natural world, is deeply rooted in Christian theology. Many Christian denominations and organizations have spoken out on the issue of climate change, emphasizing the need for action and the importance of caring for God's creation. In conclusion, while the idea that global warming is a war by the mainstream media against Christianity may seem extreme, it reflects a deeper cultural and theological divide. The environmental movement's emphasis on living in harmony with nature and recognizing the intrinsic value of non-human life challenges the dominant Christian worldview, which has been interpreted as justifying the exploitation of natural resources. The mainstream media's coverage of climate change has been accused of perpetuating this perceived war, but it's essential to recognize that not all Christians share this perspective, and many see the care of creation as an integral part of their faith. Ultimately, the relationship between Christianity and environmentalism is complex and multifaceted, and requires a nuanced and respectful dialogue between different worldviews.